A seguinte ilustração trata do filme O Ponto de Mutação. É um filme extraído da obra The Turning Point do escritor austríaco Fritjof Capra. Este filme possui um enredo simples, perpassado por diálogos desenvolvidos por três personagens: Sônia, uma cientista, Jack, um político, e Thomas, um poeta, em um castelo medieval, localizado no vilarejo de Mont Saint Michel, na França. A trajetória dos personagens passa-se em um dia onde é invocado o pensamento mecanicista, defendido por Descartes, Einstein e Newton, além de abordar o pensamento sistêmico, envolvendo os sistemas abertos. Antes do advento do raciocínio de sistema aberto, os cientistas sociais propendiam a seguir uma de duas abordagens para lidar com estruturas sociais. Inclinavam-se a considerá-los como sistemas fechados, aos quais se aplicavam as leis da física, ou dotá-las com certos conceitos vitalistas, como a intellect. No primeiro caso, ignoravam as forças do meio e que afetavam as organizações, e no último, recorriam a uma certa intencionalidade mágica, catse carne. A seguir, o diálogo entre o poeta e a cientista e o político sobre o relógio.
Look at this, look at this, look at this. This thing has been functioning for hundreds of years. Since before the beginning of modern times.
Yeah, but this is different from the kind of time you were talking about before. Sunrise to sunset, Sabbath to Sabbath, isn't it? This is mechanical time, isn't it?
You bet it is, you bet. I sometimes think that this clock, this machine, is what constitutes humanity's first real break from the world of nature. Wouldn't you say so? Hello?
The clock did much more than that. It became the model of the cosmos. And then they mistook the model for the real thing. People got the idea that nature was just a giant clock, not a living organism, but a machine.
That's exactly what I've been trying to...
An ex-American resident, an ex-voter.
Ex-wife? This is very upsetting. Why don't intelligent people like yourself bother to vote?
Well, forgive me, you politicians make it so hard. The ideas expressed by most of you, right and left, seem to me as antique and mechanical as that old clock.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, if I was to explain that, I'd have to go all the way back to Descartes, if you remember him.
Yeah?
To be or not to be?
I think, therefore I am.
Yeah, well, we both went to college, yeah.
Well, Descartes was the primary architect of the view that sees the world as a clock. A mechanistic view that still dominates most of the world today, and it seems to me, especially you politicians.
Mechanistic. Is that a real word?
Mechanistic, mechanical, mechanics? Yeah, it's a good word.
Mechanistic, as if nature functions like a clock. You take it apart, reduce it to a number of small, simple pieces, easy to understand, analyze them, put them all back together again, and then you understand the whole.
Isn't that what's known as scientific thinking, Miss Hoffman? Really? What you call the mechanistic view, isn't that what the scientific method's all about?
Is it?
Well, I don't think so, but I'd like to kind of hear from the physicist, Jack.
All right, I'm sorry. Please continue.
Well, you're right in a way, Mr.
Jack. Call me Jack.
Okay, Jack, you are right in a sense. But it wasn't always so, not before Descartes. When he introduced such thinking, it amounted to a revolutionary break with the church. He said, I don't need the Pope to tell me how the world functions. I can find that out for myself. Because to me, the world is just a machine. And then he became fascinated with clockworks and made the clock into his central metaphor. He said, I consider the human body as nothing but a machine. A healthy man is like a well-made clock. A sick man is like an ill-made clock.
Well, the metaphor seems a little clumsy now, but it worked, didn't it?
Yes, so successfully that scientists came to believe that all living things, plants, animals, us, are nothing but machines, and that's the fallacy. It carried over into everything, arts, politics.
Katz e K apresentam o conceito de sistema aberto, como a compreensão de organizações é de um sistema de energia input e output. As organizações sociais são sistemas abertos, porque o input de energias e a conversão do produto em um novo input de energia consiste em transações entre a organização e o seu meio ambiente. Este modelo é tirado da teoria de sistema aberto, exposta por von Bertalanffy. A seguir, o conceito segundo a cientista sobre a teoria dos sistemas.
Looking at things through that old patriarchal Cartesian Newtonian lens, you're going to miss out on what the world really is. You, we, all of us, we need a new vision of the world, and we need a more comprehensive, more inclusive science to support us. There is a new theory emerging now, which places all the ecological concepts we've been talking about into one coherent scientific framework. We call it systems theory, the theory of living systems.
Living systems?
All living organisms, as well as social systems and ecosystems. See, this theory would help us get a much firmer grasp on the sciences that deal with life.
Are these all your own ideas, or do other people share them? I mean, has this been applied in the sciences anywhere?
Am I a crank? It's okay, Senator. This is real science. And many scientists, including some Nobel laureates, have been working on these ideas. Prigozhin, Bateson, Maturana, just to mention a few. Yes, it is science, but of a new kind. Instead of concentrating on basic building blocks, the systems view concentrates on principles of organization. Instead of cutting things to pieces, it looks at the living system as a whole.
Katz e Kahn apresentam ainda as características do sistema aberto. São 9 características que definem os sistemas abertos: importação de energia, a transformação, o output, os sistemas como ciclos de evento, a entropia negativa, feedback, homeostase dinâmica, diferenciação e equifinalidade. Veja no comentário a seguir entre a cientista e o político ao analisar as árvores e as suas relações com o meio ambiente.
How can you think usefully about things in this holistic way? That's what I don't see. You can contemplate them, you can look at them, as Thomas says. But if you want to do something, if you want to get into specifics, by definition, don't you have to take things apart? How can you talk usefully about a tree without talking about its roots or its leaves or its bark?
Well, I could, without even naming the parts you mentioned. A Cartesian would look at a tree and conceptually take it to pieces. But then he would never really understand the nature of the tree. A systems thinker would look at a tree and see the seasonal exchange between tree and earth, earth and sky. Would see the annual cycle, which really is one big breath the earth takes through its forests, providing us with oxygen, a breath of life, linking the earth with the sky and us with the universe. A systems thinker would look at the tree and see the life of the tree only in relation to the life of the whole forest. Would see the tree as a habitat for birds, a home for insects. But if you look at a tree and try to understand it as something separate, you will be bewildered by the millions of fruits it's producing in its lifetime, because only 1 or 2 trees will grow from those fruits. So if you look at the tree and see it as a member of a larger living system, that abundance of fruits will make sense. Because hundreds upon hundreds of forest animals and birds will survive because of them. Interdependence. And the tree cannot survive on its own either. To draw water from the ground, it needs the fungus that grows at the tip of each root. And the fungus needs the root to survive, and the root needs the fungus. If one dies, the other dies. And there are millions of relationships like this in our world, each depending on each other for life.
Segundo Katsikar, 1987, apude ao porte, um sistema social é uma estruturação de eventos ou acontecimentos e não de partes físicas, e por conseguinte, não tem estrutura à parte de seu funcionamento. As bases sociopsicológicas dos sistemas sociais compreendem os comportamentos dos membros em desempenho de papel. As normas prescrevem e sancionam esses comportamentos e os valores em que as normas se acham enraizadas. A seguir, assista ao trecho que trata sobre o desmatamento na Amazônia na visão da cientista, em contraponto ao pensamento mecanicista.
Take Brazil. Do you know that they are destroying the Amazon rainforest at the rate of 1 football field a second? No. Why? They're trying to pay their national debts with cattle and land speculation. They don't even have time to sell the timber, so they're setting fire to the woods. And our barren forests are one of the main causes of the global warming, the greenhouse effect. And in the meantime, we are pouring our money into the arms race. See, you cannot look at one single of our global problems in isolation, trying to understand it and solve it. Of course, you can fix a fragment of a piece, but it will deteriorate a second later because what it was connected to has been ignored. We have to change everything together at the same time. The ideals, the institutions, the values.
All of this sounds kind of familiar. Do you two know each other? Is this a setup? Well, all right. What do I think of this? Yes, the problems are complex, but you're just looking at the dark side because so's our capacity to respond, isn't it? Communications, data banks, technology. We already have the tools to deal with a lot of these problems, even if they are more complex.
Candide himself, the eternal optimist.
But don't you see that all these new technologies, they're causing more problems than they solve? In medicine, for example, there's been an overwhelming increase in technology, but the costs have spiraled concurrently. It's become medicine for the rich. And public health hasn't improved significantly, although public health would improve dramatically if we just changed our eating habits, for example. But instead, the experts are occupied with making artificial hearts. But if our agribusiness had fed us better instead of chopping down the rainforests in order to make cattle ranches, in order to produce more and more red meat, which is one of the direct causes of heart attacks, then maybe we wouldn't have to spend so much of our money on artificial hearts, and so on and so on. Well, this is all examples of interconnectedness.
O filme O Ponto de Mutação tece críticas à teoria dos sistemas a partir do pensamento do poeta. Segundo Misógis, diz o seguinte: assim como a teoria de sistemas abertos, a teoria da complexidade se baseia em um conjunto de metáforas que se referem à ordem holística emergente, capazes de viajar e de se tornarem gradualmente um senso comum. A seguir, a interpretação e crítica do poeta sobre a teoria dos sistemas.
Okay, Sônia, let's hear it. What's life?
Well, in system language, the answer would be the essence of life is self-organization. What's so funny?
What is life, ma'am? Well, life is self-organizing.
Self-organization is not only the living systems maintaining themselves and continuously renewing themselves. It also means that they have an inherent tendency to transcend themselves, to reach out and create new forms. See, that is one of the most exciting parts to me, that the basic dynamics of evolution, it's not adaptation, it's creativity.
You mean the living systems will evolve just for the hell of it, that they'll sort of go exploring whether they need to for survival or not, so that I'm not so far out of step as I usually suppose?
No, you're not. Creativity is a basic element of evolution.
Throw it out into these far-out places of quantum physics and systems theory, and don't you find that the only thing you ever catch is your own self back again? Like a fish trapped inside the wind. Where are the other people in your system, Sônia? The ones you love. What about these tourists here that we feel so superior to? Aren't they too like fish trapped inside the wind? And I don't know, maybe even the feeling's more terrible for them because, you know, they don't have words to describe it. So tell me, Sônia, where are all of us in there? The real people with their qualities, their longings, their weaknesses. Where are you inside there, Sônia? Where's Kit? You know, scientists can tell us what life's internal metaphors are, whether they're computer chips or clocks. Politicians can tell us what forms our lives should take. But, I feel just as reduced being called a system as I do being called a clock.
Este foi o vídeo e para mais informações acesse o material.